we start the rundown in the front office. Because the Golden State Warriors are not only trying to fix their playing roster this summer, they also have to rebuild the bench behind Steve Kerr, and that quiet project just got a lot more complicated. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we jump into everything today, that like button right there is what decides if this video hits hundreds or thousands of people. 1 second is all it takes, but the impact on this channel is massive. Go ahead and hit that like button right now. Seriously, it's the simplest thing you can do. And honestly, the best way to back this content up, because every single like pushes us further. So hit it now. The Warriors have already lost 2 lead assistants. Terry Stotts and Jerry Stackhouse have both moved on, leaving real holes on Kerr's staff heading into next season. Golden State quickly zeroed in on a familiar face to help fill them, former New Orleans Pelicans head coach Willie Green. The interest made perfect sense. Green is not a stranger to this building. He worked as an assistant under Kerr between 2016 and 2019, a stretch that produced back-to-back championships and an additional trip to the NBA Finals. He knows the system, he knows the culture, and he knows what winning looks like in the Bay Area. For weeks, a reunion looked close to done. Green was linked to a return almost immediately after the Warriors were knocked out of the play-in tournament back in April, ending a season that fell short of the playoffs. Bringing him home felt like a natural first move in refreshing the voices in the locker room. But just as the deal looked like a formality, a new suitor entered the picture. According to NBA insider Mark Stein, the Dallas Mavericks are now showing interest in Green as well. Dallas confirmed Dusty May as its new head coach earlier in the week, replacing Jason Kidd, and May is busy assembling his first NBA coaching staff. Stein reports that Green, who Golden State has been pursuing to rejoin Kerr's group, also has interest from the Mavericks. The same report mentions other experienced names circling Dallas, including former Bucks coach Adrian Griffin, a signal that May wants veteran guidance around him as he steps into the job. That last point matters, because Dusty May arrives in the NBA with a strong college resume, but no professional experience as a head coach. He just led the Michigan Wolverines to the NCAA championship this year, an enormous accomplishment, but the jump to the pro game is steep. Surrounding himself with assistants who have already sat in the big chair would soften that learning curve. Green checks that box. He led the Pelicans for just over 4 years before being let go early this past season, when New Orleans stumbled out of the gate with a rough 2-10 start. The firing does not erase the value of his experience. If anything, 4+ years of running an NBA bench is exactly the kind of seasoning a rookie head coach craves on his staff. There is even a draft night connection tying these two franchises together. At Tuesday's draft, the Mavericks used the 9th overall pick on Michigan forward Morris Johnson Jr., one of May's own college players. 2 picks later, the Warriors reached for another Wolverine standout, Yaxel Lendeborg. So both teams walked away from the same draft with a piece of May's championship Michigan roster, and now they may end up competing for the same assistant coach as well. So what does Green actually decide? If the choice truly comes down to Dallas versus Golden State, it likely hinges on what kind of project excites him more. One path keeps him with a veteran, win-now group that is still chasing more glory in the short term. Even after missing the playoffs this year, the Warriors remain built around proven stars and the expectation of contending. For a coach who values immediate stakes in a championship environment, Golden State is the obvious draw. The other path is about building something from the ground up. The Mavericks have a young core with serious upside, headlined by Rookie of the Year Cooper Flagg, who may only be scratching the surface of what could become a special career. Helping shape that kind of talent from the early days carries its own appeal, especially for a coach who wants to put his own fingerprints on a developing roster rather than slotting into an established one. It is a genuinely interesting fork in the road, and the ripple effects could spread well beyond these two teams. The Warriors want to rejuvenate the voices in their locker room as they retool, and losing a top target like Green would force them to pivot quickly to other candidates. Around the league, assistant coaches are watching closely, because one domino like this can shift the entire market for staff jobs. Dallas grabbing Green would be a small but telling win in the off-season chess match between two franchises that suddenly have more in common than anyone expected a week ago. For now, the Warriors wait, the Mavericks push, and Willie Green holds a decision that says a lot about where he sees himself next. Whether he returns to the comfort of a title-tested staff or bets on the energy of a rising young team in Dallas, his answer will quietly shape both benches for the season ahead, and in an off-season where Golden State is trying to get every detail right. Even a coaching hire carries weight that fans should not overlook. From the coaching staff, we move to the back end of the roster, where the Golden State Warriors are quietly stacking up intriguing options for the summer. The team's Summer League roster is starting to take shape, and the latest addition is a 6'8" forward with a recent stop in the NBA already on his resume. According to ESPN's Algan Ulick, the Warriors will sign Lachlan Olbrich to a deal that allows him to play with them in Summer League. Olbrich is not a complete unknown to NBA circles. He was the number 55 pick of the 2025 draft and signed a two-way contract with the Chicago Bulls, where he appeared in 37 games as a rookie. His NBA numbers were modest, averaging 2 4/10 points and 3 rebounds per game, but the more interesting story lived in the G League. There, across 21 games, Olbrich flashed real point forward skills, putting up 19 2/10 points, 8 6/10 rebounds, and 5 3/10 assists per night. A big man who can rebound and create for others is exactly the kind of profile that can stick around the league. To understand why this signing matters, you have to understand Golden State's roster math. Every NBA team carries 3 two-way roster spots, and the Warriors currently have 2 of them filled by L.J. Cryer and Malavi Leons. That leaves the competition for the remaining spots wide open, and Olbrich just walked into the mix. Cryer is the most secure of the group. He impressed during his Warriors stint last season, and is widely expected to keep his two-way contract. There is even a chance he gets upgraded to a standard contract at some point this offseason, a sign of how well he played. Leon sits on much shakier ground. He did not make the same kind of impression, and the Warriors can release him from his two-way deal without any penalty, which makes his spot one of the most vulnerable on the entire roster. That uncertainty is what opens the door for newcomers. Golden State drafted Leji Jones with a number 54 pick, and he figures to have an inside track at one of the two-way spots, though even that is not guaranteed. The Warriors have also handed out Exhibit 10 contracts to Graham Ike and Nick Boyd, deals designed to bring players into camp with a path toward a two-way conversion. Boyd's odds are viewed as longer, partly because he could be competing directly with Cryer, and Golden State may not want to dedicate 2 two-way roster spots to 2 smaller guards. That logic reshapes the whole picture. If that read holds true, Olbrich would essentially be competing with Leons, Jones, and Ike for 2 available two-way spots. In other words, this is not a courtesy invite or a body to fill out a summer roster. There's a real job at the end of it, and the cleanest way to win it is simple. Outplay everyone else when the games start. Summer League becomes the audition, and whoever impresses the most earns the leverage. There is also a reason to believe Olbrich can be that guy. He is only 22 years old, which gives him room to grow into whatever role a team needs. His path to this point has been anything but conventional. He spent 1 season at UC Riverside in 2022 and 2023 before heading overseas, where he dominated the New Zealand National Basketball League and was named that league's most valuable player in 2024. That kind of award shows a player who can take over a professional environment, even if it is not the NBA. The next step tested him against tougher competition. In 2024 and 2025, Olbrich played for the Illawarra Hawks of Australia's NBL, a significantly more competitive league than the one he had been dominating. His production naturally came back down to earth, but it did not disappear. He averaged 8 4/10 points while shooting an efficient 59 2/10% from the floor. Putting up that kind of scoring on that kind of efficiency in a league that's strong is genuinely impressive, and it suggests his game translates as the level of competition rises. Stack all of that together, and the Warriors look smart for taking the shot. This is not your typical aging Summer League veteran hoping for one last look. Olbrich is young, productive, versatile, and already battle-tested in the NBA, the G League, and quality international play. He has a real chance to land a two-way roster spot, whether with Golden State or with another team watching Summer League closely. For a Warriors organization trying to find cheap, useful talent at the margins of the roster, that is precisely the type of low-risk bet worth making. The headliners get the attention, but championship-level depth is often built on exactly these kinds of moves. finding a player others overlooked and giving him a stage to prove he belongs. Olbrich now has that stage, and the summer will tell us whether he seizes it. Roster decisions like this rarely make headlines in June, but they often decide how deep and how flexible a contender can be once the regular season arrives, which is exactly why this kind of move deserves a closer look. We close with the biggest domino of the Warriors' entire offseason, and it has a very famous name attached to it. For months, the question hanging over Golden State has been simple. What is Draymond Green going to do with his contract? And the answer, it turns out, could decide whether LeBron James ever ends up in a Warriors jersey. Green holds a $27.7 million player option. He can opt into it and stay on that exact salary, or he can decline it and sign a new multi-year deal with Golden State. The deadline to make that call is June 29th, which means clarity is coming fast. And the latest reporting suggests Green is leaning toward the simplest route. According to Clutch Point's Brett Siegel, Green will most likely opt into his contract. On the surface, a veteran picking up a guaranteed $27 million sounds routine. But the ripple effects of that single decision reach all the way to the most intriguing free agent storyline of the summer, the possibility of LeBron James leaving the Lakers and joining forces with Golden State. To see why, you have to follow the money. With Green exercising his option, the Warriors' salary commitments line up like this. Stephen Curry leads the way at $62.6 million. Jimmy Butler follows at $56.8 million. Green slots in at $27.7 million. Moses Moody is at $12.5 million. Al Horford at $6.8 million. Rookie Axel Lendeborg at $6.1 million. Brandon Podziemski at $5.7 million. Guay Santos at $4.6 million. And Will Richard at $2.2 million. Those 9 players alone account for roughly $185 million. Now bring James into the equation. If the Warriors used the full non-taxpayer mid-level exception, worth about $15 million, to sign him, their payroll would climb to around $200 million. The catch is that using that exception triggers a hard cap, locking the team at a ceiling of roughly $209 million. From there, the math gets unforgiving. NBA rules require a team to carry at least 14 players on standard contracts, with 9 players already accounting for $185 million, and James pushing the total toward $200 million. The Warriors would need their final 4 players to fit into a little under $9 million combined. That is an extremely tight squeeze. It would force Golden State to let Kristaps Porzingis walk, and it would make affording almost any veteran nearly impossible, because minimum contracts actually cost more for players with longer NBA service. In short, building a James roster under these constraints would gut the team's depth. Green has to know all of this. He is one of the most basketball-savvy players in the league, deeply aware of how the cap works and how his own number affects everything around him. And that is the part that should give Warriors fans pause. The fact that Green appears willing to simply opt in rather than maneuver his salary to clear room quietly suggests he does not believe James is actually coming to Golden State. Siegel reported that the Warriors view themselves as the frontrunners to land James if he decides to leave Los Angeles. But there is a telling silence underneath that optimism. There have been no rumors of Green orchestrating some kind of James coup by voluntarily reducing his salary to open up the books. If a super team reunion were truly close, you would expect to hear whispers of exactly that kind of sacrifice. The absence of those whispers hints that the people closest to the situation may believe James is heading back to the Lakers after all. There is still one path that keeps the door cracked open. It is common for teams to ask a player to push back his option decision deadline by a few days. If Green and the Warriors agree to do that, it would be a meaningful signal. It would suggest Green wants to bring James aboard and is waiting to hear from James's camp before locking in his own contract. A short extension would essentially be a tell that the dream scenario is still alive, even if it is hanging by a thread. The relationships involved make that possibility worth watching. James and Green share the same agent, Rich Paul, and the two have been close friends for years. That connection means James could plausibly give Green some inside indication of what he is thinking before the rest of the league finds out. It would not be a surprise at all if that kind of quiet heads-up happened between two longtime friends weighing a potential team-up. For now, though, the smart read is that James has not tipped his hand yet, and is still weighing his options as one of the most consequential free agency decisions of his career looms. That leaves Green in a genuine bind. He might be willing to take less money if he knew for certain James was coming, but he is far less likely to sacrifice salary on a gamble, with no clear sign of what James plans to do. So as June 29 approaches, every Warriors fan should keep one eye on Draymond Green's contract, because buried inside that decision is the clearest clue we have about whether LeBron James is truly Bay Area bound, or whether this dream quietly fades before it ever begins.